Hello, today I'm joined by Robert Sala, who's the Managing Director of a very dynamic small company called DELO. DELO manufactures adhesives and more recently curing lamps and things like for LED. But I want to go back and look at some of the history, Robert,
Yep.
of the company. I mean, it was Sabine Herold and her husband acquired DELO through an MBO way back in 1997. But since then, the company's grown quite aggressively. What do you think are the significant changes that led to this growth?
Well, I think there were not so much changes. There were two things. It was perfect timing this time. They've taken it over from a much larger company who invested a lot into R&D and gave us really a good starting point. And then also the mood in the company changed a little bit. Now we are one family, and so we're much more committed to the company and to the growth points. And
so not the big corporate thing, but more closer.
Yeah, more close. This is our company. This is how we see that there are no people around who we never know and who take the money in their bags. And so the mood in the company was much better at this time, and I think that's one of the points. And they invested properly.
Okay. So how many people are now in the company, and how does that break down geographically?
People-wise, we were roughly 650. And in the headquarters, we are more than roughly 550. We have three major destinies, which is the Americas, where we have in Boston an office, and in total we have in the US something like 10, 15 people all over the country. We have something like 30 people and plus in China, or let's say East Asia, and another 15, 20 in Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia, okay. That's quite a footprint, really.
Yep.
So it appears that you focus heavily on the automotive industry and on electronics sectors. So are there any other technologies where you're pretty active?
So we try to balance a little bit the fast growing but short turnover, consumer electronics.
Okay.
And we try to compensate that with automotive and much longer industries like aircraft industry or something like that, where we do also a little bit of our business.
That's two very different areas. I mean, consumer electronics is very different from high reliability electronics such as aerospace and automotive. So you have different teams for these things, or how?
Absolutely. We divide all those businesses into, we call it application fields, and there we have specific people who are working only for that application field. For example, smart cards or some cameras, and even in their cameras we distinguish between automotive cameras and consumer electronic cameras.
Right. Okay. So you're spending, from what I can see, about 15% of your turnover on R&D, which is a reasonably healthy number for sure. So what differentiated products have become your major top sellers over the years?
So for us, when we talk to a customer, it's not so much only his problem of bringing two things together and keeping them reliable together, but we look much more on the process.
Okay.
We are a process-driven company, and we do much more consulting into process, and as an outcome of that, we have a lot of dual curing adhesives. Epoxies, acrylates, or even anhydrides we have with a dual curing mechanism. And this dual curing gives you the advantage that you have a fast fixation of components, and then you can move on to a secondary curing step, which could be heat or room temperature or even humidity. Right. Most of the time it's heat, because it's the best predictable curing
method.
Yeah, curing method.
Right, yeah. And it gets done fairly quickly as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So is your product development, is it principally customer driven, or is there any blue sky stuff there?
Blue sky, I don't know. We always try to base it on what we particularly see. We can say 40% or something like that we go on interesting customer projects, and 60% or even a bit more we go on projects where we think this is the future, but even the customer project have to fit to our corporate strategy at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. Now, you recently introduced a series of curing lamps. What challenges do you face with light curing? Is it a more favorable system to use light curing than baking, as you just mentioned?
I think with the light curing we have a big advantage. There are two things. It's curing on demand. You switch on the lamp and the curing starts, and switch off the lamp and the curing stops at this time. and you also transfer much more energy in a very, very short time.
Okay.
So that this, again, from the process viewpoint, quick curing or quick fixation, and then you can do other
certainly with
things.
LED curing, for example, the time, the length of exposure time is critical.
Absolutely.
So the fact that you have the immediate switch on, switch off is
absolutely.
is
For
useful.
example, when I started with the company, fast curing was something like 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, we talk about milliseconds
Yeah.
of curing steps, because you have to see, if you go to consumer electronics, you have 1.5 billion of smart cards produced every year, and there are, for example, 5 loudspeakers in there, or minimum 3. So you have a quantity of hundreds of millions which you have to produce every year for a single company, and therefore curing steps 0.2 seconds are quite normal in the region.
Right. What other benefits have you got with your curing lamps?
So we adapted exactly to the needs of our products. So we have both in hand, the photo initiator and the emission of the or the right emission of the light. We can match that properly, and therefore the customer really gets the right irradiation at the right time also. And so to match that, to have both in our hands, gives a big benefit to our customers.
Right. Okay. Now, you also work in the automotive industry, of course, and the automotive industry at the moment is pushing the boundaries for thermal testing. They're trying to go above 150 degrees C. What sort of challenges is that bringing you?
Well, the problem, any adhesive at the end is a plastic, is a polymer. And polymers do not like heat too much. We recently launched a product which has a thermal stability of 250 degrees, not for ages, but for relevant times. And this is something where a lot of people look into. And bringing again the process thing, where we say we can do a heat stable product with fast processing via dual cure or something like that, is really a benefit even to very old-fashioned technologies like heat curing or something like that.
Okay. So let's see. Your most recent office opening was in Japan.
Yeah.
Now, that's notoriously a very difficult landscape for Western companies to navigate. How is DELO approaching the Japan market?
Number one, the notoriously, how do you call it, difficulties are there. I think Japan opened a bit up after the bad earthquake, after the Fukushima thing, because they also get shortages in the supply chain.
So they needed to reach out and get some Western.
Reach out where else could we get something?
Yeah.
So there is some kind of openness, and our setup of consultancy, bringing really new solutions to customers, is something where they are looking for, and we have quite an interesting success there.
Great. Well, that's an interesting story. So where do you see your big opportunities in the future then for DELO going forward?
The two markets which you just mentioned, automotive and electronics. In automotive, there's a big switch now. Nobody knows where it really goes to. Is it hybrid? Is it electromobility or something like that? There are a lot of things going on, and every time when something changes, we are in the game because we bring new technology. We are developing something together with our customer to enhance his new ideas or something like that. And this is really an interesting time for us. And even if you talk about consumer electronics or electronics in general, there is
continues to grow by application.
Growing with smart home, smart city, whatever comes up. There are so many opportunities which we foresee for our future that we are pretty confident.
It's a great industry to be in. Well, Robert, I've been following DELO for many years. It's a dynamic company, an impressive company. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.